In the United States, Medicaid is a lifeline, but it can also be the biggest pitfall on the immigration journey. Many people think that receiving Medicaid is simply taking advantage of the system, but they end up failing their green card interview due to the public charge rule. The latest standards from the immigration authorities in 2026 have changed. If you haven't understood the critical thresholds in 8 CFR 212.22, this small Medicaid card can instantly render all your previous immigration efforts useless. First, we need to dispel a myth: not everyone who receives Medicaid will be considered a public charge. According to the latest immigration assessment standards, routine medical care, prescriptions, emergency treatment, vaccinations, and even childbirth and medical care for children under 21 are not considered a public charge. The only real high-risk situation is long-term institutional care. If you apply for Medicaid and the government pays for you to live in a long-term nursing home or psychiatric hospital, then in the eyes of the immigration authorities, you are completely dependent on government assistance. This is what is meant by public charge. Receiving public benefits will directly affect your green card application. Regarding the 2026 Medicaid policy known as Medi-Cal in California, this is essentially a medical assistance program for low-income individuals. Its funding is complex, shared by the federal and state governments, leading to significant variations in implementation across states. Some states are more generous, while others are less so. If you plan to apply for Medicaid in 2026, you must first meet the federal poverty guidelines. Looking at the latest data, the federal poverty guidelines for 25-26 have been fully updated. For single individuals, 100% of the poverty line is an annual income of $15,650. Most states require that Medicaid applicants' income not exceed 138% of this standard, meaning your annual income limit is approximately $21,597 for a couple. This limit increases to $29,187 for a family of 3. It's $36,777, and for a family of 4, it's $44,367. These numbers are strict criteria. When the immigration authorities review your data, they will directly compare it to your tax returns. If your tax return shows an annual income of $50,000, but you are receiving Medicaid, this is not just a public charge issue, it involves welfare fraud. Fraud is an unforgivable felony under immigration law. Let's look at 8 CFR 212.22. The core legal basis for the immigration authorities' determination of public charge. The 2026 review logic will no longer focus solely on the amount of money received, but rather on your overall circumstances. This is called the totality of the circumstances test. Under these circumstances, officials will present a checklist and give you a comprehensive score. The first item is age. If you are in your prime, between 18 and 61 years old, receiving a Medicaid card will attract extra scrutiny. Officials will wonder why you can't obtain health insurance through employment if you are able to work. If you are over 62, while receiving benefits is more reasonable, your health condition becomes another assessment factor. After age 62, while age is no longer your enemy, it will lead the review to another extreme. Officials will examine your healthcare costs. You need to obtain a doctor's certificate in advance, proving that you can live independently in your later years and do not need to reside in expensive long-term care facilities. This statement is legally called a medical capacity assessment, and it is a lifeline for elderly people during immigration interviews. The second item is health. If you suffer from a serious chronic illness that requires long-term and expensive treatment, and you don't have private insurance and rely entirely on Medicaid, officials will assess whether you will become a long-term burden on the government in the future. This is very cruel, but within the legal framework. This is a real discretionary power. If you have a cold, fever, or some mild illness that can be controlled with inexpensive medication, these are not considered public burdens. The real trouble lies with dialysis, late-stage cancer, or severe dementia. These conditions usually mean extremely high medical expenses. The immigration office will do the math. If your assets cannot cover the treatment costs for the next 10 years, and your only payment channel is Medicaid, your risk of being rejected will be very high. The solution here is not to conceal your illness, which constitutes immigration fraud. What you need to do is improve your family support network. If you have children working in the United States, you need to have them provide an authorized statement of financial support, along with their pay stubs and bank statements. You need to show the immigration office that even if Medicaid is canceled, your family has the financial resources to pay for your medical expenses. We need to use family wealth to hedge against individual health risks. This is covered in 8 CFR. With a comprehensive score of 212.22, this falls under the category of excellent positive deductions. The third item is family size. The more children you have to support, or the more elderly relatives you care for, the greater your financial burden. Officials will consider your total household income and whether it can support these dependents. Many people assume that having many children automatically entitles them to Medicaid, but in the 2026 review process, the number of dependents means your income threshold becomes higher. If you are a family of 4, although the Medicaid limit is over $40,000, officials will wonder how $40 can support for people in New York or California. They will suspect you haven't declared cash income. This is what's called an income reasonableness review. If your income is genuinely low, you need to demonstrate that you live in rent-controlled housing or that you receive legitimate non-cash assistance, such as donations from a church or gifts from relatives. You need to show officials that your low income is real and that you are able to maintain your life with this low income. This demonstration of your ability to live on a low income is more convincing than simply presenting numbers. At the same time, if you have adult children, be sure to have them sign an I-860 for affidavit of support. This is the strongest legal backing when you have a large family. The fourth item is assets and resources. This is where the biggest changes will occur in 2026, except for a very few states like California that have eliminated asset reviews. Most states still have an asset limit of $2. $0 for applicants over 65th. This means you cannot have more than $2,000 in cash in your bank account. If you have $30 in savings but obtain Medicaid by transferring assets, officials will require you to explain the whereabouts of that $30,000 when you apply for a green card. Asset verification has entered the era of big data. In 2026, each state government's CVS system will automatically scan bank account activity for the past 60 months. If you suddenly transferred $50,000 to a relative the month before applying for Medicaid, this is legally considered fraudulent poverty, and this behavior will directly trigger a look-back review. The penalties during this period. If you have savings, you can use them to repay your mortgage, pay for legitimate medical expenses in advance, or upgrade your primary residence. Spending this money on yourself is legal, but transferring it to others is illegal. You must keep receipts for every large expenditure. When officials ask where your money went, you must be able to provide receipts to prove that the money was used for your basic living expenses. Do not try to hide cash in the digital environment of 2026. Suddenly disappearing cash is more suspicious than existing savings. The fifth point is education and skills. If you have a high level of education, professional skills and English proficiency, even if you are temporarily receiving welfare benefits, officials are more likely to believe that you will be self-sufficient in the future. Conversely, if you lack skills, don't speak the language, and rely on welfare benefits long-term, your public charge risk will skyrocket. For many new immigrants in their 50s, this is a weak point, but you can improve your chances by taking action. Enroll in an ESL English class, even if it's only once a week, and obtain attendance certificates. Participate in skills certification courses. Even if you don't have a job now, these learning records will send a crucial message to the immigration authorities. Although I am currently receiving benefits, I have the ability to enter the workforce. In the discretionary power granted under Section 212.22, potential is a very important indicator. An individual who is learning English and one who refuses to communicate will be viewed very differently by the officials. You should proactively include these completion certificates in your application package, telling the officials that the welfare benefits are merely a stepping stone to establishing yourself, not a lifelong refuge. This positive attitude is the best way to avoid problems. Next, let's discuss the exempted groups. If you belong to the following categories, you can confidently receive welfare benefits because the law explicitly states that you are not subject to the public charge test. The first category includes those who have already obtained a green card and are preparing to take the citizenship test. Since you are already a legal permanent resident, receiving benefits is your right, and you will not face a public charge test unless you leave the United States for more than 180 days and then return. The second category includes refugees, or those with political asylum status. You are accepted based on humanitarian grounds, and the government assumes you need initial support. The third category includes those with U visas, T visas, and the IWA Violence Against Women Act abused spouse applicants and other individuals with specific protected statuses receive special legal protection. The fourth category includes active minus duty U.S. military personnel and their families. The government providing health care coverage to those who serve the country is only right. If you are not on these lists, do not be complacent. We must be vigilant about the new restrictions that will take effect on October 1, 2026. The federal government is tightening its financial support for green card holders. Even if receiving Medicaid doesn't affect your green card status, if you have had your green card for less than 5 years, certain federally funded medical services may be unavailable to you. This requires you to accurately distinguish between state and federal benefits. Now let's break down 3 high-risk details to avoid when applying for Medicaid. The first is concealing assets. Many people hide cash at home or transfer their savings to relatives a month before applying. Remember, each state has a 3 to 5-year look-back period. If you have unusually large expenditures or gifts during the look-back period, the government will consider you to be intentionally creating poverty. This will not only lead to the rejection of your Medicaid application but also result in a criminal record for welfare fraud. In the digital office environment of 2026, bank transfers, property transfers, and vehicle transfers are all transparent. Secondly, there's cross-state application, a very basic but common mistake. You live in New York, but use your relative's address in California to apply for Medicaid, claiming that California has better benefits. This is legally considered cross-state fraud. Once discovered, you will face hefty fines and may even be denied entry by customs the next time you enter the United States. Thirdly, there's claiming benefits with a non-immigrant visa. If you have a Bone or B2 tourist visa or an Hone-B work visa, you promised upon entry that you had sufficient financial resources to support yourself in the U.S. if you then immediately apply for Medicaid. This is considered a discrepancy between your stated purpose of entry and your actions. The immigration authorities will believe you lied during your visa interview, which could lead to your visa being revoked and even a permanent ban from entering the country. There's also a hidden landmine called estate recovery. Many people don't know that Medicaid isn't free. If you use long-term care services through Medicaid after the age of 55, the state government will seek reimbursement from your heirs after your death. If you own a property, the state government has the right to place a lien on the property and sell it to repay the medical expenses you incurred during your lifetime. This is a huge blow to families who want to leave their inheritance to their children and grandchildren. So how should we cope in 2026? If you are in a critical stage of your green card application, you want to receive Medicaid for chronic illness rather than for emergency treatment or childbirth, please be sure to plan your assets first. You can consult a professional accountant or legally separate your assets by establishing an irrevocable trust. However, these actions must be completed 5 years before applying for Medicaid. If you are already receiving Medicaid and are worried about its impact on your immigration status, you need to improve your totality of circumstances, legal term referring to all relevant factors, circumstantial evidence, such as demonstrating that you are studying English, providing proof of vocational training, or showing that although your savings are modest, you have an excellent credit history, can all be positive factors in the eyes of immigration officials. Medicaid or similar public assistance programs is a double-edged sword. Used correctly, it's a safeguard, but used incorrectly, it's a landmine. If your current financial situation is complex, do not fill out the forms blindly. Check the latest public charge guidelines on the USCIS website or consult a professional immigration lawyer for an assessment. During this critical period of policy changes, information is your shield. Do not believe rumors, always rely on the latest federal announcements. Protecting your status means protecting the future of your entire family. We must further break down the relationship between the I-860 for affidavit of support and Medicaid. Many people overlook the fact that the sponsor who signed the affidavit for you will be subject to scrutiny in 2026. In this review process, the sponsor's income is not just a paper figure. If your sponsor is wealthy but you are receiving Medicaid, the immigration authorities will initiate a process called sponsor deeming. This means the government believes you are not impoverished because your sponsor has an obligation to pay for your medical expenses. This income aggregation calculation is called sponsor deeming, and in 2026, this calculation method will become extremely strict. Most states, when reviewing Medicaid eligibility, will attribute the sponsor's income to the applicant. This directly affects many green card holders. Although you may not have an income yourself, having a wealthy guarantor can disqualify you from receiving Medicaid. If you attempt to receive it anyway, it will be considered a violation. We need to be vigilant about the AVS automatic verification system of the federal Medicaid system in 2026. This is a digital auditing system directly connected to major banks. Previously, when you applied for Medicaid, the staff might only look at the bills you submitted. Now, AVS will automatically scan all your account records from the past 5 years, including accounts where you are a joint account holder. If you declare only $1,000 in your application, but AVS detects that you closed a $50,000 account 3 years ago, and you cannot provide proof of where that money went, this dishonest behavior will be automatically flagged as high-minus risk by the system. In immigration interviews in 2026, the officer's tablet will directly display these red flag warnings. Regarding the weighted scoring of 8 CFR 212.22, we need to understand what constitutes a heavily weighted negative factor. The first item is whether you have received cash benefits or long-term care in the past 36 months. Please note this 36-month time window. This is a critical period for the immigration authorities to assess whether you will continue to rely on government assistance in the future. If you have more than 12 months of benefit records within this window, you will be classified as a heavily weighted negative factor. In contrast, there are significant positive factors. If you have private commercial health insurance, or your annual income exceeds 250% of the poverty line, even if you previously received Medicaid, having this insurance now can significantly improve your overall score. In 2026, the immigration authorities will place great emphasis on your ability to withstand future risks. Regarding the details of non-MAGI Medicaid for seniors over 65, MAGI refers to modified adjusted gross income. Regular Medicaid only considers MAGI. But for those over 65, the non-MAGI path is used, which considers not only income but also assets. In 2026, except for California and New York, most states will have extremely strict assessments of non-primary residence properties. If you own an unoccupied property overseas, even if it doesn't generate rental income, it will be converted to its current value in the 26 asset assessment. If this value exceeds the state government's asset limit, you will not be eligible for Medicaid. Many people think that if they don't mention it, no one will know, but with increasingly sophisticated digital cross-border investigations, this kind of wishful thinking is very dangerous. Next, let's break down the asset transfer look-back period trap. Many people hear that giving money to their children will allow them to receive Medicaid. This is legally called a disqualifying transfer. In 2026, state governments' monitoring of this behavior has extended to property transfers. If, within 60 months before applying, you transfer a house to your children at a price far below market value, the state government will calculate a penalty period. The logic of this penalty period calculation is simple: the total amount of assets you transferred divided by the average monthly cost of a local nursing home. For example, if you transferred $300,000 and the local nursing home costs $10,000 per month, You will face a 30-month Medicaid ineligibility period. During these 30 months, if you become ill, Medicaid will not pay. And since your assets have been transferred, you won't be able to afford the cost yourself. This is how many families fall into desperate situations. Let's now look at the 2026 regulations regarding emergency. Misconceptions about Medicaid. Medicaid is emergency medical assistance provided to individuals who do not meet the eligibility requirements for regular Medicaid. Many people worry that receiving emergency Medicaid will affect their future immigration status. However, according to the latest guidelines from 2026, emergency Medicaid is not considered a public charge because it does not constitute long-term care. Regardless of your immigration status, using this benefit when you are in a life-threatening situation or about to give birth is legally permitted unprotected. We must pay special attention to the funding cuts mentioned in the 2026 federal budget, which have led to a so-called Medicaid purge. State governments are beginning to conduct large-scale reviews of existing beneficiaries. Previously, reviews might have been conducted every 2 years. Now, they are conducted annually or even every 6 months, requiring you to submit the latest income statements and asset reports. If you miss a letter response, your Medicaid will be immediately suspended. If you continue to see a doctor during the suspension period, these bills will become your personal debt. For individuals over 50, health insurance premiums are very high, and many choose Medicaid because they cannot afford commercial insurance. In 2026, we recommend that these families consider the subsidized ACA plan. ACA is what is commonly known as Obamacare. As long as your income is between 100% and 400% of the poverty line, the government will provide you with substantial premium subsidies. This subsidy is not considered a public charge. It can protect your health and demonstrate your self-sufficiency to officials. We need to analyze the self-sufficiency assessment in 8 CFR 212. 22nd, the 2026 immigration interview will include informal observations of your health condition. If you appear extremely frail or your medical history indicates that you may need to enter a nursing home at any time, officials have the right to request a more detailed medical assessment report. To address this, you should ask your attending physician to provide a statement of capability before the interview, certifying that your current condition is under control and does not require long-term hospitalization or care. Regarding estate recovery, regarding Medicaid recovery, we need to clarify that not everyone who has received Medicaid will have their estate pursued for recovery. The trigger point for recovery is after age 55, and only if long-term care or related medical services have been used. If you only had a few outpatient visits or checkups after age 55, it usually won't trigger a lien on your property. However, if you used home health care services, this is also included in the recovery scope in many states. In 2026, a legal way to avoid estate recovery is to establish a life estate. This allows you to retain the right to live in the property while you are alive, but transfer the remaining ownership to your children. As long as this transaction occurs outside the look-back period, the state government cannot touch the property during recovery. This is a simpler but equally effective legal tool than a trust. We must discuss the impact of the new regulations on refugees and asylum seekers on October 1, 2026. Although these individuals are usually exempt under the new 26 regulations, if your status has been converted to a green card and you have held it for 5 years, you will no longer enjoy the privileges associated with refugee status. You must undergo the regular public charge review like other immigrants. This is a very subtle turning point in status. For families applying for family-based immigration, if your parents are in the United States and you want to apply for Medicaid for them, be sure to confirm whether your state has a 5-year waiting period for new immigrants. Some states, like California, cover these 5 years with state funds, but some states do not. If you illegally apply during the waiting period, it will directly cause significant obstacles for your parents when they apply for naturalization in the future. Regarding the digital office environment in 2026, we want to remind everyone that tax returns, bank statements, and Medicaid application forms must be consistent. Do not provide inconsistent information. When filing taxes, some people portray themselves as poor to maximize tax refunds, but then present themselves as wealthy when applying for a mortgage. This inconsistency in data will be readily apparent in the government's back-end systems by 2026. If you accidentally provide incorrect information in your application, the best course of action is to proactively contact the Medicaid office to correct it. This proactive correction will be considered a sign of good faith under immigration law and can serve as evidence of your lack of fraudulent intent during future interviews. The essence of the Medicaid system is a social safety net. It's not meant to punish the poor, but rather to allocate resources fairly. Protecting your credit record is crucial. In the 2026 Public Charge Assessment, an excellent credit score can offset many of the negative points associated with receiving small amounts of welfare benefits. Your credit score represents your economic credibility and ability to fulfill obligations in American society, an intangible asset highly valued by officials. Finally, we want to reiterate that you should not believe any unofficial rumors about welfare benefits. Every family's situation is unique. Before making any major decisions regarding welfare applications, please consult a licensed professional. Don't let a Medicaid card become a stumbling block on your immigration journey. We wish your family good health and a prosperous life, and may your American dream flourish and bear fruit through lawful means, bringing you peace and security year after year.